War. It is a word that evokes images of destruction, suffering, and loss. Throughout human history, war has cast a long and dark shadow, shaping the destiny of nations and leaving an indelible mark on the lives of countless individuals. From the ancient battles fought with swords and shields to the modern conflicts waged with sophisticated weaponry, war represents a profound failure of human understanding and cooperation. It is a complex and multifaceted phenomenon with far-reaching consequences that extend far beyond the battlefield. At its core, war is a violent clash of ideologies, interests, or ambitions between two or more parties. It is a brutal and chaotic affair that disrupts the fabric of society, shatters economies, and inflicts deep psychological wounds on both combatants and civilians alike. The impact of war is not confined to the present moment. Its legacy can linger for generations, shaping the political, social, and economic landscape of nations long after the guns have fallen silent. War exacts a heavy toll on the economic well-being of nations. The direct costs of conflict, including military spending, destruction of infrastructure, and loss of human capital, can cripple even the strongest economies. Governments are often forced to divert vast sums of money away from essential services such as healthcare, education, and infrastructure development to fund their war efforts. This reallocation of resources can have a devastating impact on economic growth and development, particularly in developing countries with limited resources. Moreover, war disrupts trade, displaces workforces, and creates uncertainty in financial markets. Businesses may be destroyed, supply chains disrupted, and foreign investment deterred. As a result, unemployment often skyrockets, inflation soars, and economic hardship becomes widespread. The economic consequences of war can be felt for decades after the fighting has ended. Rebuilding shattered infrastructure, reintegrating displaced populations, and restoring economic stability are daunting tasks that require sustained commitment and international cooperation. War is not only an economic catastrophe, it is also a social upheaval that tears at the very fabric of society. It disrupts communities, displaces families, and exacerbates existing social tensions. As bombs rain down and soldiers march across borders, millions of people are forced to flee their homes, becoming refugees or internally displaced persons. These uprooted individuals often face perilous journeys, uncertain futures, and discrimination in their new surroundings. War also erodes social trust, as fear, suspicion, and propaganda poison relationships between individuals and communities. It can fuel discrimination, prejudice, and violence against minority groups perceived as the enemy. Furthermore, war often leads to a breakdown in law and order, as governments struggle to maintain control and armed groups exploit the chaos to pursue their own agendas. This can create a climate of impunity, where human rights abuses and other atrocities are more likely to occur. While the physical wounds of war may heal over time, the psychological scars can linger for a lifetime. Both soldiers and civilians who have lived through the horrors of conflict often bear invisible wounds that can haunt them long after the fighting has ceased. Soldiers exposed to the trauma of combat, witnessing unspeakable acts of violence and constantly facing the threat of death, may develop post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, depression, and other mental health issues. Civilians too suffer immense psychological trauma as a result of war. The loss of loved ones, the destruction of homes and communities, and the constant fear of violence can leave deep emotional scars. Children are particularly vulnerable to the psychological effects of war. Exposure to violence, displacement, and the loss of parents or caregivers can have a profound impact on their development and well-being.